Hello, everybody. Happy Friday Eve. It is Thursday night, which means we're back here for another episode of the Lions Grid. In today's episode, we will be taking a look at the NFL Power Rankings. We'll break down, of course, the same five sources we usually take a look at, that being ESPN, NFL.com, CBS Sports, Bleacher Report, and USA Today. We'll also take a look at Joe's top five, my top five, and then where the various media sources have the Lions rated. And then we'll finish up by just doing mine and Joe's picks here for Thursday Night Football. Of course, Kansas City traveling to Denver to take on the Broncos in an AFC West matchup. Set the table. Let's dig into it here. And as mentioned, we'll start with the media power rankings today. So tossing them up here on the screen. These are the top five for the five sources I mentioned. Again, ESPN, NFL.com, CBS Sports, Bleacher Report, and USA Today. You can see Patriots still firmly the number one rated team for all five sources. There's a little bit of some... There's some discrepancy throughout the rest of them. You can see for the most part, though, all five sources also having the Saints in there. All five sources having the 49ers, the Packers as well. You can see the difference being you have the Texans in there for USA Today as their number 5 team. But otherwise... and omitting the Seahawks. Otherwise, the other four have the Seahawks in their top 5, sort of alternating with the Packers there for their 4 and 5. So not a whole lot of variety. No real surprises here this week. You know, a couple of weeks back you had the Lions creeping in there for the USA Today, so that was certainly interesting. But I would say overall, pretty standard, pretty expected things. Of course, the Patriots still have yet to lose on the season. San Francisco still hasn't lost. The only 2-loss team in those top 5s is the Houston Texans for the USA Today. Otherwise, every team there has only 1 loss at maximum. So nothing too surprising. Now for a little bit of a spicy, differing opinion, I'm going to show you here Joe's power rankings for this week. So up on the screen now we have Joe's rankings, and you can see it there. That's right, the Detroit Lions are his number 2 rated team in the NFL currently here in Week 7. He has the Packers, his number 3 team. He's got Kansas City hanging in there at number 4. And the Baltimore Ravens there at number 5. And I wanted to, Joe's taking a little break from joining us here on the show, but I wanted to make sure that I got his opinions on why he moved the Lions up to number 2, because in previous weeks Joe didn't have them in his top 5, so it was kind of a big jump to include them in his top 5. So I just want to make sure that I'm quoting him properly here. So just pulling up, we're communicating very via text. But the reason Joe has them as his number 2 team is they can play with anyone and always have a chance to win. So Joe, not discouraged by the loss from the Lions to the Packers at Lambeau Field on Monday Night Football. He has them, again, his number 2 rated team in the NFL. That's a little bit risky for my business. He also has the Packers up there at number 3. He doesn't have the Saints nor the 49ers in there. I can't speak to all that. Didn't ask him for a whole lot of details surrounding that stuff, but I'll go ahead and show you my picks here. Mine much more similar to what you've seen from the national media outlets. You can see there I have Patriots number 1, Saints my number 2 seed, 49ers my number 3 seed, then I have the Seahawks and the Packers. And the reason I have the Seahawks over the Packers is because, you know, the Packers sort of snuck one out there at home against the Lions. With Davante Adams hurt, Geronimo Allison going down, that offense, you know, Jamal Williams stepped up, Aaron Jones had a bad game. Outside of Aaron Rodgers, with Davante Adams and Geronimo Allison hurt, that offense looks a little anemic. So, yeah, I've liked what I've seen out of the Seahawks better. So I've had the Seahawks jump over them. The Packers were, of course, in my top 5 last week. I didn't want to drop them out because they did get the win there. But I do think, even though they got the win, it was a very ugly win there against the Lions, as we've talked about, and certainly a little help from their friends in the black and white. So I dropped the Packers in that. Of course, I have the 49ers up in there because they are undefeated, and last week they took care of business against the Rams. That front 7 of theirs looks very much like they can hang with anybody. So it's going to be interesting in a couple weeks when we see the 49ers square off with the Seahawks. That should be a pretty choice game. Looking forward to that. But for my money, those are my top 5 teams. Again, you can see them here. I'm going with the Patriots, Saints, 49ers, Seahawks, and Packers. 4 of the 5 there, NFC teams, but the Patriots, the sole AFC representative, but they are the team that has been solidly number 1, not only in my personal rankings, but everyone's top 5 since the beginning of the season. So I think overall, the NFC seems to be the division the conference that has the better teams currently. But that being said, I think the best team is still the Patriots, even though they're starting to be they're starting to run out of targets themselves. I talked about that being a reason why I downgraded the Packers in this week's rankings. Due to some injuries there, the Patriots are kind of looking for some people to step up. So certainly something to keep an eye on, because they have kind of eked out some wins here in the last couple of weeks. Buffalo Bills might be able to apply some pressure to them. I think they should have no problem winning the AFC East, but they certainly have some things to figure out there. Their defense is playing spectacularly, though, so that should be able to carry them while the offense tries and gets things figured out. As mentioned, we'll go ahead and toss up the Lions power rankings here. You can see this week the average ranking from all 5 sources puts them at 14. Last week they were ranked 13, so that's a change. An average rank of -1. You can see really looking across the board, not a whole lot of fluctuation. ESPN dropped them a spot after the loss. CBS actually had to move up 2 after the loss. NFL.com, Bleacher Report, keeping everything the same. And then, of course, the big change being USA Today, who did have them, as mentioned, ranked number 4, dropping them down 6 spots to number 10 after that loss to Green Bay on Monday night. For the most part, like I said, everything stayed pretty consistent, which makes sense because I still have pretty much the same opinion I had about the Lions as I had before that game. Not feeling too down on them, not feeling too high on them. Sort of, waiting for them to prove it on the field what they're going to be this season. But certainly causing that change in the average rank was certainly that 6-spot drop in USA Today, where they went all the way from the top 5 down to number 10. But still, overall, I think they're certainly a team that can compete. To Joe's point about them being able to compete with anybody, I do think they can hang with pretty much anybody and have a shot to win a game. But that doesn't put them in my top 5 like it did for Joe. And speaking of disagreements between Joe and myself, we'll take a look here. As mentioned, tonight's Thursday night football game, Kansas City will be traveling to Denver to take on the Broncos. And last week, me and Joe were in agreement, and I picked up my first Thursday night football prediction where I went with the Patriots. I feel kind of dirty about it. It's the Patriots. They should win the game. So this week, me and Joe are split on this, but I'm feeling pretty good. I was kind of surprised by this, that Joe was going with Denver in this game. Now, I talked about this last week when we were doing our Pick'em episode, that Denver is one of the few teams that actually has, beyond sound, an actual physical home field advantage. Playing at that higher altitude is certainly an advantage. The Broncos players certainly used to it. It can be an adjustment for other teams coming in to play at Denver at Mile High. That being said, I was still surprised to see Joe going with Denver in this one, especially because he still had Kansas City ranked in his top 5. If you're asking me, I think Kansas City's outside of the top 5 looking in, coming off back-to-back losses. But I don't see them making it 3 losses in a row. I see them going on the road here in Denver, picking up the win. I'm going with Kansas City. Hopefully we can make it 2 in a row in terms of my Thursday night football predictions. I like my chances, given that I have Kansas City and Joe's got the Broncos. But I guess, we're going to find out. It is a divisional matchup. Broncos, Chiefs, classic rivalry. Both teams certainly going to be involved in this game. I think it is important for Kansas City to get the win because if Kansas City was to lose this game, looking at the standings in the AFC West, currently you do have Kansas City, the number 1 team in the AFC West. They are at 4-2. The Raiders 3-2, number 2 place team, and then the Broncos are sitting there tied with the Chargers. They're 2-4. A win there would bump the Broncos up to 3-4 and bring the Chiefs down to 4-3, making that a very tight race there in the AFC West. Again, I think it's an important game. I think the Chiefs handle business. You certainly can't take for granted, though, that home field advantage. Like I said, there's, with Arrowhead Stadium, for example, which is a stadium that's very loud, uh, the Chiefs have a very good home field advantage. It's still, yes, it can be deafening in there, and that is a physical advantage, but it's not the same as that higher altitude players getting exhausted and things like that and having trouble breathing like you have when you're the visitor in Mile High Stadium. So you can't discount that. Certainly could impact the game, but Tyreek Hill came back last week, had two touchdowns passes, or two touchdown catches. I'd look for him to continue to become more and more part of that offense now that this will be his second week back from injury. And the defense needs to step up. Joe Flacco and that Broncos offense has been able to put up some yardage and some points here. So it's by no means a done deal. Like I would have thought it would have been a couple of weeks ago, where not only me and Joe, but those 5 media outlets we looked at, they all both had the Kansas City Chiefs as the de facto number 2 ranked team in the NFL. It's not as quite of a done deal as it was back then, but I still think they can go into Denver and take care of business. So we'll see what happens here on Thursday Night Football. Hopefully I can pick up my second, and it'll be my second consecutive right pick on Thursday nights. And this one I'll feel a little better about. Still, I think Kansas City is the better team and should get the win, so it's kind of an easy pick on my part, but we'll see how it goes. If you've enjoyed today's show, please do help the channel grow. Go ahead and hit that like button, and if you haven't done so already, please do consider subscribing to the channel. We have a goal of reaching 100 subscribers, so we can unlock the custom URL for our YouTube channel. We're making great progress towards that, but we need your help, so if you haven't done so yet, please do consider subscribing to the channel. It really does help us out, and while you're at it, why not go ahead and ring that bell so that you get a notification every time we're going live with a video. That way, next time we're doing our NFL Power Rankings episode, or if we're doing our Pick'em episode, our Kings in the North, our pregame video for the Lions, whatever it's going to be, you'll get notified in either your browser or on your mobile device when we're going live with the next video. So, again, please do consider subscribing, and if you want to be kept up to date with all of our videos that are going live, please do ring that bell, because that's the easiest way to get a notification. Until our next episode, which will be airing tomorrow night, which will be our fantasy football focus, I'm Kevin Marheine, and we'll catch you during the next video.